Hello, this is Richard Pears from Finextra TV, and I'm joined today by Jess Panni, who's principal at Endjin. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Of course, you're here because we had a fantastic day yesterday on SustainableFinance.Live, and you very kindly were running one of our sessions. In fact, our third session on data, which was, really such an important area of sustainable finance and ESG. Tell me, what do you think firms like Endjin are doing and can do to help crack the code on solving this data connection to the business challenge of sustainability?
Yeah, that's a good question. So, I mean, we find when we talk to customers and people that there's a tendency for organisations to focus on the data as starting out, and a lot of these things often tend to turn to be sort of technology-led projects where there's a disconnect possibly with the outcome that people want, or it's easy to lose the connection with the actual business outcome. So we work really hard with organisations to focus really on what the outcome, the desired outcome actually is, and to work backwards to the processes and the data that are required to enable those, and also helping them actually measure success as they go throughout the journey. So yeah, it's really, I think, about working a lot smarter with information and data and making it a lot more aligned to ultimately the business outcome that we're interested in.
And yesterday we were talking about an example in agriculture and how the sort of agricultural economy obviously is delivering data into the finance industry, and what both sides of that equation need. I mean, there's all sorts of fantastic data technologies out there, but what did you take away from yesterday in terms of that the tech that can help, as well as you just said, the business?
Yeah, what's really interesting with this is that industry is so diverse in terms of the data it collects and how they impact the environment, the climate, and all these things that we need to be thinking about. And so it's not just a case of hooking into a well-known standardized schema or a well-known set of data. We have to be a little bit more clever about how we use that information. And of course, things like text analytics, machine learning, AI, to try and sort of learn and understand how to reason over data that is not necessarily in the format that we'd ideally like it, and there's a massive opportunity in that space. I think the challenge really is understanding all the different variants of how the language that organizations speak, and really working on an experimental basis to see how we can refine that, so that maybe we don't have to do the big bang classification up front, and that we can actually infer things as we go. And of course, over time, we can evolve to make that solution more effective at how it solves that problem.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. That's really interesting. I think that's really the thing that we're all trying to get to grip with. Now, you used in this process a thing called a Wardley map, which is there, I suppose, to connect this bridge between business and technology. But tell us more about why you guys use that. I'm just really intrigued.
Yeah. I love Wardley mapping. It's a great technique. It's a way of visualizing a landscape. It could be about a company or a landscape, a process landscape, and being able to reason over that to make decisions about the direction of travel, where you want to be in the future. And in this particular problem space, it's fascinating because it is quite complex by definition. It's a very interesting space. There's lots of different types of data, as I mentioned. So. And there's lots of different people involved throughout the entire value chain. So being able to identify the value chains that involved, being able to visualize those and understand how they are evolving and how we need to evolve in order to support the fundamental reporting requirements that we're trying to do is really interesting. And what was great about this particular session is that we were able to take the primary production value chain from an agricultural scenario, see that very much from the production angle of it, and then side by side start looking at the reporting and monitoring angle, so the value stream from the reporting and monitoring point of view, and then looking at it through the lens of the finance from the investor's point of view, and being able to see how these different looking through the same problem but through different lenses and how they influence each other and how they line up. And I think that that whole approach really helps to, to make sure that we're addressing, what we need to be looking at, and that was great for me coming from it. It was a new domain to me on both sides, and looking from a process point of view, I thought it was really fascinating to see that in action.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting, isn't it? Because we all talk a lot, and but we can't really see what the other person's receiving. And what you do is you show the receipt of that, and if therefore it's not been well received, you can visualize it and see it and go, oh no, that's not quite how I meant. So
yeah, it's taking people on a journey. It's been able to tell a story about your thought processes, about how you interpret the world around you, and it's really interesting. You can give the same problem to multiple people, and they might draw different maps, but each of those maps has a different story. And that's the great thing about this is that we can use this technique, we can iterate, we can share this technique across different industries and see where the commonalities are, and then build a higher level kind of view of where we want to be, but still be able to drill down into the detail when we need to. And so a problem like this, that's a really important thing to be able to do.
Really important. Tell us, what did you take away from it? You've given us a few clues. What kind of hope do you have that we're going to be able to take this forward and solve a few problems? Give us your
Yeah, as I said, I think it's a particularly interesting space given the complexity. But with that complexity, I think there's huge opportunity to do some really exciting and innovative things where, we talked about the concept of things like marketplaces, and that's really exciting from an innovation point of view. I think it's really exciting because it allows us to look, at different technologies. And one of the great things, I think one of the things that came out for me from the whole exercise is being able to use technology to be able to capture data, but expose it in ways that allow consumers of the taxonomy and that information to use the tools and bring the tools that they use and they know well to the party. And I think that's really important, that we make it an open system for people. And that was a great learning for me around this particular problem space.
Fantastic. Well, listen, we really value you doing this, and thanks very much. We look forward to seeing you speaking further. But for now, thanks a lot, Jess.
No problem. Thanks for having me. Cheers.